I asked my boyfriend about a one-sided open relationship, and he broke up with me. I'm 27 and my boyfriend is 41. We've been together 3 years, meeting when I started at his company. He was my supervisor, trained me my first 2 weeks. We hit it off immediately, so many common interests. Nothing happened initially, but after a month, I asked him for coffee. 6 months later, I moved in. That first year was incredible. Travel, restaurants, shows. He taught me about life, really listened, asked tough questions that changed my perspective. He taught me to stand up for myself. The more time together, the more I loved him. Then COVID hit. He's a workaholic. During lockdown, he worked 14 to 16-hour days. For 6 weeks straight, he worked 36 consecutive days. Come home, kiss me, work out, shower, sleep, repeat. I have to advocate for our team, he'd say. I was desperately lonely. When I told him, he tried, decorated our dining room like a Chinese restaurant, ordered takeout to simulate going out. Sweet, but I was still alone. An old college friend reached out on Facebook. We started texting. He gave me attention I craved, asked to meet for drinks. I said yes. Boyfriend wasn't home anyway. I drank too much. We kissed. It felt good. I gave him oral. No sex, but still. Next day, I asked my boyfriend to talk. I've been lonely. What are your thoughts on an open relationship? He listened as I explained. I loved him but needed attention he couldn't provide. This would be safe, easy. What brought this on? I mentioned my friend, how I wasn't interested in a relationship with him, just distraction. But it would be one-sided. I'm not comfortable sharing you with anyone. It's different for me, I'm alone more, need connection. You work constantly, have no time for other partners. He sat silent for minutes. Then I saw the hurt in his eyes. Ice water poured over me. I hadn't once thought about him. Before I could speak, you need to leave. Wait. I'm not emotionally able to communicate effectively. I need space. He left, asked me to be gone when he returned. 2 hours later, a text. We need time apart. We shouldn't be in a relationship right now. That was 2 days ago. I'm at my parents', can't eat or sleep. Then this morning, my phone rang. My coworker, Jolena. Did you see the email? What email? Check your work account. And company-wide announcement. My boyfriend had resigned, effective immediately. I called him. Voicemail, texted, nothing. Called his best friend, Marcus. Is he okay? You seriously asking that? I messed up, but you don't know, do you? Know what? Check his Instagram. His account was gone, but Marcus sent me screenshots from before deletion, a post from 3 weeks ago I'd never seen, planning something special for our anniversary. 3 years with the love of my life. Photos of a ring, custom designed, comments from his friends congratulating him. He was going to propose, Marcus said. Had the whole thing planned. Your favorite restaurant reopened for limited capacity. He booked it 2 months ago. This weekend. I couldn't breathe. There's more, Marcus continued. The open relationship thing? His ex-wife did the same thing. One-sided open relationship while he worked to support her through medical school. She ended up leaving him for one of her friends. Took him 3 years of therapy to trust again. Until you. I didn't know. The friend you mentioned, Jake Whitmore? How did you? He knew him. Jake's his ex-wife's husband now. My blood went cold. That's impossible. Jake reached out to him last month, bragging, sent him screenshots of your texts, your photos, told him history was repeating itself. Jake said he didn't know I had a boyfriend. He targeted you specifically. Found you through your boyfriend's social media. It was revenge for some work thing from years ago. Oh God. Your boyfriend didn't tell you because he thought you'd shut Jake down. Instead, you asked for permission to fuck him. It wasn't like that. I'm sending you something. Check your email. A video file. Security footage from our apartment building's garage. Dated last week, the night I met Jake. It showed me coming home at 2 a.m. But I told my boyfriend I'd been home by 10, asleep early. How did you? Your boyfriend knew. The building manager sent it to him the next morning. He was going to talk to you about it after the proposal. Give you a chance to explain. Instead, you asked to sleep with other men while keeping him exclusive. I need to fix this. There's nothing to fix. He's already gone. Gone where? His company offered him a position in London. He took it. His flight left an hour ago. I hung up and drove to the airport. Ran to international departures. His flight to London. Departed. I called him again. This time it rang differently. International tone. Then a text came through. I loved you more than you'll ever know. The ring is in our apartment, top drawer. Keep it or sell it. I don't care anymore. I've blocked your number after this message. Don't contact me again. Be happy with Jake or whoever else. You won. I raced home. Found the ring box. Inside, a stunning vintage-inspired ring. Must have cost thousands. Under the ring, a note in his handwriting. 3 years ago, you changed my life. You helped me believe in love again after I thought I never would. Every day with you was a gift. I'm sorry I worked so much. I was trying to save enough so we could take a year off together after the wedding. Travel the world like you always dreamed. I guess I should have just told you instead of trying to surprise you. The house in Vermont is yours. Deed transfer is with my lawyer. It was going to be your wedding present. Be happy. You deserve more than I could give. The house in Vermont, the one I'd fallen in love with online, said was my dream home. He'd bought it. For me. My phone buzzed. Jake. Heard your boyfriend left. Want to grab that drink? I threw my phone across the room. Another buzz. Different phone. My work phone. Email from HR. Please report to Human Resources Monday at 9 a.m. regarding your relationship with a supervisor. Then another email. From an address I didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I'm your boyfriend's ex-wife. Marcus told me what happened. I need to tell you something about Jake. Meet me tomorrow. Urgent. I sit in my parents' living room staring at Jake's text message, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The casual cruelty of, want to grab that drink? After destroying my entire life makes something shift inside me from devastation to cold rage. I screenshot the message and block his number. My first clear decision in 3 days. My thumb hovers over the delete button for a second before I save it to a folder labeled evidence that I create right there. I don't know what I'll need it for yet, but some part of me knows I'm going to need proof of what he's done. My parents are asleep upstairs and the house is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I pull my laptop from my bag and open it on the coffee table, the blue light making my eyes hurt after 3 days of crying. Marcus's words keep playing in my head on repeat, about Jake targeting me specifically, about how this was all planned. I pull up Jake's Facebook profile and start scrolling back through years of posts, looking for any connection to my ex-boyfriend I might have missed. His profile is mostly public, full of gym selfies and political rants and check-ins at restaurants. I scroll past photos from last year, the year before, going back further and further. My stomach turns when I find a photo from 6 years ago tagged at my boyfriend's company holiday party. Jake's arm is around a woman I now recognize as the ex-wife, both of them smiling at the camera. The location tag says it's at some hotel ballroom downtown. I zoom in on the photo and see my ex-boyfriend in the background, younger but definitely him, talking to someone I don't recognize. Jake and the ex-wife look happy together, her hand resting on his chest. The comments are mostly generic holiday wishes, but one catches my eye from someone named Greg. Glad you two finally made it official. I click on the ex-wife's profile, but it's private now. Just a generic profile picture of a sunset. I go back to Jake's photos and keep scrolling, finding more pictures from that same time period. There's one of him and my ex-boyfriend standing together at what looks like a work site, both wearing hard hats. The caption says, last day before the big project launch, and it's dated 7 years ago. My chest tightens as I realize they weren't just co-workers. They worked closely together. I screenshot everything I find and save it to the same evidence folder. The email from the ex-wife sits in my inbox like a bomb I'm afraid to open. After 2 hours of staring at it, I finally click and read her message 3 times, trying to understand why she would want to meet with me. She says she has information about Jake that I need to know, that she made the same mistakes I did, and that she's been where I am now. Her email is short and direct, giving me her phone number and suggesting we meet Sunday morning at a coffee shop called Brewer's Corner on the east side of the city. She signs it just Rebecca with no last name. I type out a response saying I'll be there, my fingers moving automatically while my brain tries to process what's happening. I hit send before I can second-guess myself. I spend the entire night researching everything I can find about Jake Whitmore online. His LinkedIn shows he left my boyfriend's company 7 years ago after some kind of dispute, and there are hints in old forum posts about a project that went wrong. I find an article in a local business journal from 7 years ago about a construction project that was delayed due to safety concerns. The article doesn't name anyone specifically, but it mentions that several workers were reassigned and one supervisor was let go. I cross-reference the dates with Jake's LinkedIn and they match up perfectly. The more I dig, the more I realize this revenge plot has been years in the making. I find a Reddit thread from 6 years ago, where someone with Jake's username is complaining about being fired unfairly, about how his boss threw him under the bus to save his own career. The details are vague, but the anger is clear. Comment after comment about how he's going to make things right someday. I screenshot that too. By the time the sun starts coming up, I have a folder full of evidence that Jake has been planning this for years. My eyes burn and my head pounds, but I can't stop looking. I find his ex-girlfriend's Instagram, a woman named Sarah who posted about their breakup 3 years ago. She hints at him being controlling and manipulative, about how he isolated her from her friends. I send her a message asking if she'd be willing to talk, knowing she probably won't respond but needing to try anyway. Sunday morning arrives and I still haven't slept, my eyes burning as I stare at my closet trying to figure out what to wear to an HR meeting that could end my career. My mom knocks softly and brings me coffee, not asking questions she knows I can't answer. The HR email said to report at 9 a.m. sharp, and I have exactly 4 hours to pull myself together enough to face professional consequences. I settle on black pants and a gray sweater, professional but not trying too hard. My reflection in the mirror looks terrible, dark circles under my eyes and my skin pale and blotchy from crying. I do my best with makeup, but there's only so much concealer can hide. My mom hugs me before I leave, holding on a little longer than usual. I meet Rebecca at Brewer's Corner, a coffee shop halfway across the city, somewhere neither of us would normally go. She's prettier than her photos, put together in a way that makes me feel even more like a disaster, but her eyes are kind when she sees me walk in. We sit in the back corner and she orders us both tea, her hands steady where mine are shaking. The shop is quiet on a Sunday morning, just a few people with laptops and newspapers scattered around. Rebecca looks like she's in her late 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and minimal makeup. She's wearing jeans and a blue cardigan, casual but intentional. When our tea arrives, she wraps her hands around the mug and looks at me with an expression I can't quite read. She tells me her name is Rebecca Chandler, and that she kept her maiden name after marrying Jake, which should have been her first warning sign. She explains that Jake approached her 8 years ago when she was a medical student, stressed and lonely because her then-husband worked constantly. The parallels to my situation make my skin crawl. She describes how he started as just a friend from the gym, someone to talk to who seemed to understand her frustration. Her ex-husband was doing his residency at the time, working impossible hours just like my ex-boyfriend during COVID. Jake was attentive and available, always ready to listen when she needed to vent. Rebecca describes how Jake befriended her slowly, always there when her ex-husband wasn't, listening to her complaints and validating her feelings of neglect. She thought she was making her own choices when she started the affair, but looking back she can see how deliberately he isolated her and amplified every small relationship problem. By the time she realized what was happening, she'd already left her husband, and Jake had what he wanted. She tells me about specific conversations where Jake would ask leading questions about her marriage, making her focus on everything that was wrong instead of what was right. He'd suggest meeting up right when her husband had to cancel plans, positioning himself as the reliable one. She says it took her 2 years after leaving her husband to see the pattern, to understand that Jake had been playing her the whole time. I ask Rebecca why Jake would do this, what her ex-husband did to deserve such calculated revenge. She pulls out her phone and shows me old emails between Jake and her ex-husband from their time working together, a project where her ex-husband reported Jake's safety violations that got him fired. Jake blamed him for ruining his career, even though Jake's own negligence caused the problems. The emails show my ex-boyfriend trying to address safety concerns professionally, giving Jake multiple chances to fix things before escalating to management. Jake's responses are defensive and angry, accusing my ex-boyfriend of having it out for him. The final email is from HR confirming Jake's termination, citing repeated safety violations and failure to comply with corrective action. Rebecca explains that she's been in therapy for 4 years working through what happened, and her therapist helped her see that while Jake manipulated the situation, she still made her own choices to betray someone who loved her. She says the hardest part was accepting both truths at once, that she was targeted and that she still had agency. She's telling me this now because she wishes someone had warned her before she destroyed her marriage. I pull out my phone and scroll back through my text history with Jake, watching Rebecca lean over to see the screen. Her finger taps on a message from 3 weeks ago, where Jake asked how things were going with my boyfriend, and she points out how he phrased it like he was just being friendly, but was actually fishing for information about our relationship problems. She shows me another message where Jake offered to listen if I ever needed to talk, positioning himself as the supportive friend right when I was feeling most alone. Rebecca scrolls further and stops on the message where Jake suggested meeting for drinks, sent the same day my boyfriend worked until midnight. She says the timing wasn't coincidence, that Jake probably knew my boyfriend's work schedule from watching our social media or asking mutual acquaintances. I feel sick looking at the pattern laid out in front of me, seeing how carefully Jake orchestrated every step. Rebecca tells me about a woman she met in her support group, who had a similar experience with Jake 2 years ago, another girlfriend of someone Jake had a grudge against. She says Jake used the same tactics with that woman too, the same sympathetic messages and convenient timing, and by the time the woman realized what was happening, her relationship was already destroyed. Rebecca's voice gets quiet when she says Jake is probably still doing this to people, using lonely women as weapons against men. He feels wronged him, and that I won't be the last unless someone stops him. I sit in my car after Rebecca drives away, staring at my mom's phone in my hands. My own phone is still blocked, but maybe if I use a different number he'll pick up. Maybe he'll give me one chance to explain everything I've learned about Jake's manipulation. I dial his number and listen to it ring once, twice, 3 times, my heart pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. Then a recorded voice comes on, crisp and British, telling me this number is no longer accepting calls and to please try again later. I hang up and dial again, getting the same message, and the reality hits me that he didn't just block my number. He changed his number completely, erased even the possibility that I might find a way to reach him, and the finality of it makes my chest feel like it's caving in. I put my head down on the steering wheel and cry, ugly sobbing that makes my whole body shake, because there's no way to fix this now. He's gone and he made sure I can't follow. Sunday afternoon drags by in my parents' house while I systematically try every possible way to contact him. I send an email to his old work address and it bounces back immediately with an automated message saying the account no longer exists. His Instagram is completely deleted, not just deactivated, and when I search for his name, nothing comes up. I check LinkedIn and find his profile still exists, but he's already updated his location to London and his job title to his new position, like he's already settled into his new life across an ocean. I send Marcus 3 different messages begging him to just tell me if my ex is okay, if he's eating and sleeping, if he's as destroyed as I am. Marcus doesn't respond to any of them. I try Facebook and find that my ex has deactivated that account too, removing himself from every platform where I might reach him. The completeness of his departure feels deliberate and thorough, like he planned exactly how to cut every possible connection between us, and I have to sit with the knowledge that he meant what he said about not wanting contact. Losing him the first time was devastating, but watching him systematically erase every trace of our connection feels like losing him all over again. Only worse because now I understand exactly what I destroyed. Monday morning I wake up at 5:30 even though my alarm isn't set until 6, my stomach already churning with anxiety about the HR meeting. I arrive at the office at 8:30, a full 30 minutes before Liana told me to report, because I can't sit in my parents' house anymore waiting. The lobby is mostly empty this early, and I sit in one of the uncomfortable chairs near the elevators, my hands clenched together in my lap. Mateo from accounting comes through the lobby around 8:40 and does a visible double take when he sees me. He walks over and I must look as awful as I feel, because his face immediately softens with concern. He sits down next to me and squeezes my shoulder, leaning close to whisper that whatever is happening, I'll get through it. His kindness catches me off guard and I feel tears starting to well up, which would be humiliating before the meeting even begins. I blink them back and thank him, and he squeezes my shoulder once more before heading to the elevators. The simple gesture of someone being kind to me when I don't deserve it almost breaks me completely. Liana's office is on the 3rd floor in a windowless room that feels more like a closet than a proper office. She has a folder on her desk that looks thick with papers, and I know without asking that it contains documentation of my relationship with my ex. She gestures for me to sit in the chair across from her and opens the folder, her expression professional but not unkind. She explains that an anonymous complaint was filed about my relationship, alleging violations of company policy regarding supervisor and subordinate relationships. My face burns hot with shame as she asks me to confirm the timeline of when we started dating. I tell her we went on our first date about a month after I started working here, that I asked him out for coffee. She writes this down and asks when I was transferred out of his direct supervision. I tell her it was about 2 months after we started dating, that the transfer was arranged specifically because of our relationship. She nods and makes more notes, then asks me to describe the nature of our relationship and whether I ever felt pressured or coerced. The question makes me want to scream because the answer is the opposite, that I pursued him, that I pushed for more when he wanted to be careful about company policy. Liana slides a document across the desk, and I see it's the anonymous complaint form with the name redacted. The complaint was filed 2 weeks ago, right around the time Jake first reached out to me on Facebook. I read through the details and feel my hands start to shake because whoever filed this knew specific things about our relationship, private things like where we went on our first date, and what time I usually left his apartment in the mornings. The complaint alleges that my ex used his position as my supervisor to pressure me into a relationship, that the power dynamic was inappropriate from the start. My hands clench into fists under the table as I realize what Jake did. He didn't just manipulate me into betraying someone I loved, he also tried to destroy me professionally and paint my ex as some kind of predator who took advantage of a younger employee. The calculated cruelty of it makes me want to throw up right there in Liana's office. I interrupt Liana mid-question, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. I tell her I have information about who filed the complaint and why, and she looks surprised but gestures for me to continue. I explain about Jake Whitmore, about his connection to my ex through the ex-wife, about how he deliberately targeted me as part of a revenge plot over something that happened years ago at work. I pull out my phone and show her the screenshots Rebecca gave me, the old emails about the safety violations and Jake's termination. Then I show her my own text history with Jake, the way he slowly built up to suggesting we meet, the way he always messaged right when I was most vulnerable. Liana's expression shifts from professional skepticism to genuine concern as she reads through everything. She asks if she can take copies of the screenshots, and I nod, watching her scan each one into her computer. She tells me this changes the nature of the investigation significantly. Liana closes the folder and folds her hands on top of it. She says she needs to verify everything I've told her and consult with the company's legal team about how Jake's manipulation affects the policy violation investigation. But she also explains that even if I was deliberately targeted, the relationship still violated company policy since it began while my ex was my supervisor, before my transfer was arranged. The policy exists to prevent exactly this kind of situation, regardless of who pursued who or what the circumstances were. She tells me I could face consequences ranging from a written warning to termination, depending on what the legal team decides after reviewing all the evidence. I need to prepare myself for serious professional consequences, she says, and the room feels like it's tilting, and I grip the arms of the chair to steady myself. I make a split-second decision and tell Liana I want to provide a full statement about the relationship. I explain that it was completely consensual, that I pursued him initially and asked him out first, that he was actually hesitant because of the policy and his position as my supervisor. I tell her about how he arranged my transfer as soon as we started dating, how he was always careful about maintaining professional boundaries at work. If I'm going down for this, I'm not going to let Jake's complaint paint my ex as some predatory supervisor who took advantage of a naive younger employee. Liana looks at me with something that might be respect and says she appreciates my honesty. She'll schedule a follow-up meeting for later this week once legal has reviewed everything and made their determination. I stand up on shaky legs and leave her office, knowing my career here might be over, but at least I didn't let Jake destroy my ex's reputation along with everything else. I leave the building and get in my car, but instead of driving back to my parents' house, I head toward the apartment I shared with my ex. I use my key knowing this will probably be one of the last times, that eventually the lease will end, or he'll have someone come pack up the rest of his things and change the locks. I need to face the physical reality of the life I destroyed, even though every item I touch is going to feel like a knife in my chest. The parking garage is dim and quiet at 9:30 on a Monday morning, most people already at work. I take the elevator up to our floor and walk down the hallway that used to feel like coming home. The apartment is eerily quiet when I open the door, already feeling abandoned like a museum of our relationship. Most of his personal items are gone and the space feels hollow without them. I walk through each room like a ghost, visiting her own life. The couch where we watched movies every Sunday still has the indent from where he always sat. The coffee table holds a water ring from my mug, but none from his because he always used a coaster. I open the kitchen cabinets and find them half empty, his favorite mugs gone, the fancy espresso machine he bought last year missing from the counter. He took the things that mattered to him and left behind the shared items we picked out together, like he wanted to erase himself but not punish me by taking everything. The bedroom is worse. His side of the closet gapes empty, hangers pushed to one end in a sad cluster. I run my fingers along the empty rod and find dust where his suits used to hang. The nightstand on his side is cleared off completely. No books or reading glasses or the small dish where he emptied his pockets every night. I sink onto the bed and the mattress feels too big now, too cold, like it knows he's never coming back. I force myself to stand and start opening drawers, looking for anything he might have left behind. His dresser is empty except for some old t-shirts he must have forgotten. The bathroom cabinet under the sink where he kept his shaving supplies is bare. I'm about to give up when I see a small box pushed to the back of the top shelf in the bedroom closet, behind where his winter coats used to be. I have to drag the desk chair over to reach it. The box is plain cardboard, unmarked, and when I lift it down, it's lighter than I expected. Inside I find a stack of papers, some photos, and an envelope with my name written on the front in his careful handwriting. My hands shake so badly I almost drop the envelope. The date on it says 3 weeks ago, back when everything was still good, back when he was planning to propose. I sit down on the closet floor because my legs won't hold me anymore, and I tear open the envelope with shaking fingers. The letter inside is 3 pages long, front and back. His handwriting neat and precise like always. I start reading, and the first line punches the air from my lungs. He wrote that he loved me more than he'd ever loved anyone, that I brought light back into his life after years of darkness. He said he knew his work habits were hurting us, and he was sorry for all the nights he came home too tired to really be present. He explained that he'd been working so hard because he wanted to save enough money for us to take 6 months off together after the wedding. He'd already talked to his boss about a sabbatical, and they'd approved it, contingent on him finishing the current project. He wanted to travel with me to all the places I'd talked about visiting. Wanted to spend half a year just focusing on us without work stress or money worries. Requested Reads is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. He wrote about the Vermont house and how he'd been planning to tell me about it the night he proposed. How he imagined us spending long weekends there in the fall watching the leaves change. He described plans for a garden I could tend and a studio space where I could finally try painting like I'd always wanted. He said he'd been building our future brick by brick, while I thought he was just ignoring me. Every sentence is a reminder of how badly I misunderstood everything. How I destroyed something precious because I couldn't just talk to him about feeling lonely. The second page gets harder to read through my tears. He wrote about his ex-wife and how her betrayal nearly broke him, how it took 3 years of therapy before he could even consider dating again. He said meeting me felt like a miracle, like life was giving him a second chance to get it right. He wrote that he never told me about his ex-wife's affair because he didn't want to burden me with his past pain and because he trusted me completely. He said that trust was the most valuable thing he'd ever given anyone, and I was the only person since his divorce who he'd felt safe enough to offer it to. Reading those words knowing what I did makes me want to throw up. He trusted me, and I proved I wasn't worthy of it. He loved me, and I threw it away for attention from someone who was using me as a weapon. The last page is the worst. He wrote that he hoped I would understand why he worked so hard, that he was trying to build financial security, so we could have freedom together. He said he was planning to tell me everything the night he proposed, to show me that he'd heard my concerns even when I didn't voice them directly. He wanted to prove through actions that he was committed to making our relationship the priority, that the long hours were temporary and leading somewhere better. He wrote that he knew he wasn't perfect, but he was trying his best to be the partner I deserved. The letter ends with him saying he couldn't wait to see my face when he got down on one knee, that he'd been carrying the ring around for 2 weeks already because he was too excited to leave it at home. I fold the letter carefully with shaking hands and put it in my purse. It's evidence of what I lost, proof that the future I destroyed was even better than I knew. My phone buzzes in my pocket and I jump. It's a text from a number I don't recognize. The message makes my stomach turn. Jake asking if we can talk, like he has any right to contact me after what he did. I should block the number immediately, but something stops me. If he wants to gloat or manipulate me further, I'm going to make sure he faces consequences for it. I text back suggesting we meet at the public park near my parents' house tomorrow morning. Somewhere public where I'll be safe and where I can record every word he says. He responds within seconds, agreeing to 10 a.m. I screenshot the entire conversation and email it to myself as backup. I spend the rest of Monday night at my parents' house preparing for the meeting with Jake. I charge my phone fully and test the voice recorder app 3 times to make sure it's working. I write out a list of questions I want to ask him and things I need him to admit on tape. My mom knocks on my door around 11 to ask if I'm okay, and I tell her I'm fine even though I'm not. She doesn't push, but I can see the worry in her eyes. I barely sleep that night, running through scenarios in my head about what Jake might say and how I'll respond. By the time my alarm goes off Tuesday morning, I feel sick with nerves and anger. I arrive at the park 15 minutes early and sit on a bench near the playground where there are other people around. I start the recording app on my phone and put it in my jacket pocket with the microphone facing out. At exactly 10 a.m., Jake walks up looking pleased with himself, like this is all some game he's winning. He's wearing expensive sunglasses and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my rent. He sits down next to me without asking and starts with fake concern about how I'm doing. I cut him off before he can finish his act. I tell him I know everything about his history with my ex-boyfriend, about Rebecca, about the HR complaint he filed. I watch his face change as he realizes I'm not the easy target he thought I was. The pleased expression drops away, and something colder slides into place. Jake leans back against the bench and crosses his arms. He admits he reached out to me specifically because of who I was dating. He says my ex-boyfriend ruined his career over a minor safety issue and deserved to feel the same betrayal Jake felt when he got fired. His voice is casual, like he's discussing the weather, instead of confessing to deliberately destroying my relationship. I dig my nails into my palms to keep from screaming at him. He keeps talking and says that my ex-boyfriend reported violations to cover up his own mistakes on that project years ago, that he scapegoated Jake to protect himself. Then Jake says something that stops me cold. He says I still made every choice myself, that he just provided opportunity, and I took it. He's right, and I hate him for it. I wanted someone to blame besides myself, but Jake won't let me off that easy. Jake pulls out his phone and shows me documents from 7 years ago. Emails and project reports that suggest my ex-boyfriend knew about problems on the construction site before Jake's violations. The documentation looks official with company letterhead and signatures. Jake claims my ex-boyfriend saw the issues coming and reported Jake's smaller infractions to deflect attention from his own oversight failures. He says 3 people lost their jobs over that project, but my ex-boyfriend got promoted because he positioned himself as the one who caught the problems. I don't know what to believe anymore. The clear moral lines I wanted where Jake is the villain and my ex-boyfriend is the victim blur into something complicated and painful. Maybe my ex-boyfriend wasn't perfect. Maybe Jake's grievance had some basis, even if his revenge was wrong. Maybe everyone involved made mistakes and I'm just another casualty in a war that started before I even met either of them. Jake stands up to leave and tells me I should thank him for showing me who my ex-boyfriend really was. I stay silent because anything I say will just feed his ego. He walks away across the park and I sit there for another 20 minutes making sure the recording saved properly. I have his confession on tape, but I don't know what to do with it. Reporting him to his current employer feels petty and won't undo what happened. Sharing it with my ex-boyfriend is impossible since he blocked me. The recording is evidence, but evidence of what exactly? That Jake manipulated me and I let him? That my ex-boyfriend might have made mistakes years ago that don't justify what happened to us? I save the file to 3 different places and head back to my parents' house feeling hollowed out. That evening my phone rings and it's Rebecca. I answer, and she asks how I'm doing in that gentle way that makes me want to cry. I tell her about confronting Jake and what he said about my ex-husband. Rebecca listens without interrupting and then says she struggled with the same thing. She learned her ex-husband wasn't perfect, and that Jake's grievance had some legitimate basis, even though his revenge was wrong. She reminds me that people can be flawed and still not deserve what Jake did to them. She says her ex-husband made mistakes at work years ago, but that didn't justify Jake targeting her to hurt him. She tells me my ex-boyfriend's past doesn't erase what he built with me or excuse my betrayal. Her words help a little, but they also make everything feel more complicated. I wanted simple answers about who was right and who was wrong, but real life doesn't work that way. After we hang up, I search online for therapists who specialize in relationship trauma and manipulation. Rebecca mentioned someone named Penelope Staley, who helped her work through everything after her divorce from Jake. I find her website and send an inquiry through the contact form, explaining my situation in vague terms. She responds within an hour with available appointment times. The first slot she has is Friday afternoon, 3 days away. I book it immediately, even though the cost makes me wince. I need professional help processing everything that happened because I clearly can't figure this out on my own. The next 3 days drag by in a fog at my parents' house. I can't eat more than a few bites at meals, and I'm sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. My mom tries to help by making my favorite foods and offering to watch movies with me, but nothing helps. My dad looks at me with disappointed concern that reminds me of being 16 and getting caught sneaking out. They don't know what to say, and I don't know how to explain the mess I've made. I spend hours lying in my childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment with my ex-boyfriend, looking for signs I missed that things were falling apart. But there weren't signs because things weren't falling apart until I broke them myself. Friday morning arrives and I book my first therapy appointment with Penelope Staley for that afternoon. The 3 days between now and then feel impossible to fill, so I spend most of Thursday cleaning out my stuff from the apartment. I pack my clothes into garbage bags and load them into my car trip after trip until my childhood bedroom at my parents' house looks like a storage unit. Each item I touch reminds me of something we did together or somewhere we went. I find his old college sweatshirt that I used to wear around the apartment, and I hold it against my face, breathing in the faint smell of his cologne before stuffing it in a bag. My mom watches me carry load after load inside but doesn't ask questions. She just makes sandwiches I don't eat and refills my water glass when I forget to drink. Thursday afternoon, Liana emails me asking me to come in for the follow-up meeting at 2 o'clock. I shower for the first time in 2 days and put on work clothes that hang loose because I've barely eaten all week. My hands shake while I'm doing my makeup and I have to redo my eyeliner 3 times. The drive to the office feels surreal, like I'm watching myself from outside my body. I park in the garage where that security footage was taken, and I can picture myself stumbling and drunk at 2 in the morning, thinking I'd gotten away with something. The building manager must have sent that video to my ex-boyfriend the next day, and he spent weeks knowing I'd lied to him while planning to propose anyway. The thought makes me want to throw up right there in the parking garage. Liana's office looks the same as it did Monday, but somehow more official now that she has actual decisions to tell me. She gestures for me to sit, and I notice there's a much thicker folder on her desk this time. She opens it and pulls out several printed pages that look like email chains and investigation notes. Her expression is professional but not unkind as she starts explaining what the company decided. They investigated Jake's complaint thoroughly, and also looked into my counter evidence about his manipulation and the revenge plot against my ex-boyfriend. The legal team determined that while Jake's actions were concerning and potentially malicious, that doesn't change the fact that my relationship with my ex-boyfriend violated company policy about supervisor-subordinate relationships. I nod because I knew this was coming, but hearing it out loud still feels like a punch to the stomach. Liana continues talking, and I focus on her words instead of the panic rising in my chest. The relationship became consensual after the initial training period, and I was transferred out of his direct supervision relatively quickly, which works in my favor. Because of those factors, and because my ex-boyfriend is no longer with the company, they've decided to issue a formal written warning instead of termination. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The warning will stay in my personnel file for 2 years, and any future policy violations will result in immediate termination without exception. She slides a document across the desk for me to sign, acknowledging that I understand the terms. My hand shakes as I pick up the pen, but I sign it anyway because fair is fair, and I did violate policy even if I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Then Liana tells me about the transfer. I'm being moved to a different department effective immediately starting next Monday. The new position is in operations instead of my current role, and it comes with a small pay cut because it's technically a lateral move to a different job classification. I'll be working with a completely different team and reporting to a new supervisor who's been briefed on the situation in general terms without specific details. The humiliation of knowing people will talk about why I got transferred makes my face burn hot. Liana must see my expression because she adds that the company takes employee privacy seriously, and only essential personnel know the details of what happened. Most people will just think I wanted a change, or that there was a departmental reorganization. I thank her even though we both know people will gossip regardless of what the official story is. Before I leave, Liana mentions that the company is also investigating Jake for filing what appears to be a malicious complaint. She pulls out another document showing that they contacted his current employer about his harassment of me and his attempt to damage my career through false or exaggerated claims. I feel a small spark of satisfaction hearing that he's facing some consequences. But then Liana warns me not to expect too much because Jake doesn't work here anymore, and the company's ability to punish him is limited. The most they can do is ban him from company property and flag his file if he ever tries to apply here again. His current employer might take action, but that's out of their control. She suggests I might want to consider getting a restraining order if Jake continues trying to contact me, and she hands me a business card for the company's legal resources department. I take the card and thank her again before leaving her office. At least I still have a job, even if my reputation at this company is probably damaged forever. I drive straight from the office to Penelope's practice, which is in a small professional building near the downtown area. Her waiting room has comfortable chairs and peaceful artwork on the walls, but I'm too nervous to appreciate any of it. I fill out intake paperwork asking about my medical history and current symptoms. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, loss of appetite, difficulty concentrating. I check almost every box. A door opens, and a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair calls my name. I follow her into her office, which has a couch and 2 armchairs arranged around a small table. She gestures for me to sit wherever I'm comfortable, and I choose the couch because it feels less formal than the chairs. Penelope introduces herself and explains how therapy works, confidentiality rules, and what I can expect from our sessions. Then she asks me to tell her what brought me here today. I open my mouth to start explaining and immediately start crying. She hands me a tissue box and waits patiently while I try to pull myself together. I start from the beginning with how I met my ex-boyfriend and our 3-year relationship, and how lonely I felt during COVID. The words pour out in a jumbled mess, and I have to stop twice more to cry when I get to the part about asking for an open relationship and learning about the proposal. Penelope listens without interrupting, and her face stays neutral without judgment, but also without letting me off the hook. When I get to the part about Jake, she asks specific questions about how he approached me and what he said. I show her some of the text messages I saved before blocking him, and she reads them carefully. She points out patterns in his messages that I didn't notice before, the way he asked leading questions and offered sympathy at exactly the right moments. But then she says something that stops me cold. She tells me that while Jake clearly manipulated the situation, I still made my own choices within that manipulation. I had agency even if I didn't see all the factors influencing my decisions. We're going to work on understanding both things at once, the manipulation I experienced and the choices I made. It's not about blame, she says. It's about understanding so I can make different choices in the future. The session lasts 50 minutes, and by the end, I'm exhausted, but also somehow lighter. Penelope gives me some homework to think about my relationship patterns and what I was really seeking when I responded to Jake's attention. She asked me to notice over the next week when I'm looking for validation from external sources versus finding it internally. We schedule another appointment for the following week, and I leave her office feeling like maybe I can survive this after all. The weekend drags by in a blur of sleeping too much and staring at my phone hoping for messages that won't come. My ex-boyfriend's number is still blocked and his social media is still deleted. I check Marcus's Instagram to see if there are any clues about how my ex is doing, but Marcus hasn't posted anything since before everything happened. Sunday night, I can't sleep thinking about starting my new job assignment tomorrow and facing coworkers who probably heard rumors about why I got transferred. 2 weeks pass in a strange new routine. I go to my new job in operations where everyone is polite but distant. Mateo Hampton works in my new department, and on my first day, he takes me to lunch at the sandwich place across the street. We sit at a corner table, and he asks if I'm okay without pushing for details he knows I can't share. I tell him I'm working on it, and he nods like, that's a good enough answer. He talks about normal things like the new project the department is starting and which managers are reasonable versus difficult. His friendship feels like a small bright spot in all the darkness. We start having lunch together once or twice a week, and I'm grateful he doesn't treat me like I'm damaged or gossip about what happened. I see Penelope twice a week and slowly start unpacking my relationship patterns. She asks me about my previous relationships before my ex-boyfriend and I realize I've always sought validation from partners rather than building my own sense of worth. When my ex worked long hours and couldn't give me attention, I felt worthless, like I didn't matter. Jake's attention felt like proof that I was valuable and desirable. Penelope says this is something we'll work on long-term, learning to validate myself instead of depending on external sources. She gives me exercises to practice, like writing down things I accomplished each day that have nothing to do with other people's opinions. It feels stupid at first, but I do it anyway because I don't know what else to do. One night, 2 weeks after the breakup, I sit down at my parents' kitchen table and write a long letter to my ex-boyfriend. I know I'll never send it, but Penelope suggested writing it anyway as part of processing everything. I start by taking full responsibility for my betrayal without making excuses or blaming Jake's manipulation. I explain what I learned about how Jake targeted me, but I'm careful not to use that as a way to absolve myself of what I did. I tell him about starting therapy and the work I'm doing to understand my patterns. I write that I understand why he left, and that I respect his boundaries completely. I write that I'm sorry for destroying something beautiful because I didn't know how to communicate my needs like an adult. The letter ends up being 4 pages long, and by the time I finish, my face is wet with tears. I fold it carefully and put it in an envelope with his name on it that I'll never mail. At my second therapy session with Penelope, I bring the letter and read it out loud. My voice shakes the whole time, and I have to stop several times to compose myself. When I finish, Penelope is quiet for a moment before asking me what I hope to gain from sending it. I'm honest, and tell her that part of me wants him to forgive me and come back. She nods like she expected that answer, and then gently points out that I'm still seeking external validation instead of doing the internal work. She suggests I keep the letter as a reminder of what I've learned, but focus on healing for my own sake, not to win him back. The distinction feels important even though it hurts to hear. I'm not healing to get him back. I'm healing because I need to become a better person regardless of whether he ever knows about it. Monday morning, I start my new assignment in operations officially. The office is on a different floor from where I used to work, and I don't run into anyone from my old department. My new supervisor is a woman named Carol who's professional but warm. She shows me my desk and introduces me to the team. Mateo stops by mid-morning to see how I'm settling in and offers to grab coffee. We go to the break room and he asks how I'm really doing. I tell him I'm working on it, which is becoming my standard answer. He says that's all anyone can do, just work on it one day at a time. His friendship continues to feel like a lifeline in all this mess. 3 weeks after the breakup, Liana calls my work extension. My stomach drops thinking something else has gone wrong, but her tone is professional and almost pleased. She tells me the company has officially banned Jake from all company property after confirming he filed a malicious complaint against me. They also reported his harassment to his current employer, though she doesn't know what action they'll take. It's not enough consequence for what he did to me and my ex-boyfriend, but it's something. I feel a grim satisfaction knowing he didn't get away with it completely, even if the damage is already done. That afternoon, Rebecca texts me asking if I want to meet for coffee again. We meet at the same place as our first meeting, and this time the conversation feels different. Less about Jake's manipulation and more about how we're both healing from what happened. Rebecca tells me she's been divorced from Jake for 2 years now, and she's dating someone new who treats her with respect. She says it took a long time to trust again after everything, but therapy helped her understand her patterns and make better choices. I ask her what made her ready to date again, and she says there wasn't one moment, just gradual healing until she felt strong enough to risk being vulnerable again. She tells me about her new boyfriend and how different the relationship feels when it's built on mutual respect instead of manipulation and codependency. I ask Rebecca if she ever got closure with her ex-husband. She puts down her tea and shakes her head slowly. He refused all contact just like mine did. Blocked her number, moved cities, made it clear he wanted nothing to do with her. She says she spent 2 years hoping he'd eventually respond to one of her letters or emails, That time would soften his anger enough for a conversation. It never happened. She had to make peace with never getting his forgiveness. Learning to forgive herself instead became the only path forward. It's not the answer I wanted. Some part of me still hoped she'd tell me her ex-husband came around after enough time passed, that maybe mine would too. But she's being honest with me, and I appreciate her not giving me false hope just to make me feel better. She says the hardest part was accepting that some doors close permanently, that some damage can't be undone no matter how much you wish otherwise. I thank her for meeting with me again, and we hug before leaving the coffee shop. The drive home feels heavier than usual. A month after the breakup, my mom brings me a certified letter that arrived at their house. The return address shows a law firm downtown. My hands shake as I sign for it. Inside is a thick stack of paperwork regarding the Vermont house. For one stupid second, my heart stops, and I think maybe he wants to talk, that this is him reaching out through his lawyer. But it's just legal documents transferring the deed to my name. A note from the lawyer explains my ex-boyfriend wants to finalize all property matters. There's no personal message from him, just business. Cold, formal, impersonal. The lawyer's note says I need to sign the enclosed forms and return them within 30 days to complete the transfer. That's it. No mention of him at all, just instructions about notarizing signatures and filing procedures. The impersonal nature of it hurts almost as much as the initial breakup. He's treating me like a stranger he needs to settle accounts with, not someone he loved for 3 years. I set the papers on my desk and stare at them for an hour before I can bring myself to actually read through the legal language. I bring the Vermont house paperwork to my next therapy session with Penelope. She asks me what I want to do with it. The house is worth at least $400,000, according to the property assessment included in the documents. A gift I don't deserve and didn't earn. I tell her I feel guilty accepting it, like I'm profiting from my betrayal. Taking something this valuable after what I did feels wrong. But I also don't know if refusing it would just be performative guilt, rather than genuine healing. Would sending the papers back unsigned actually help me grow as a person, or would it just be a dramatic gesture? Penelope asks me what I think my ex-boyfriend wants. I admit I have no idea anymore. She suggests that maybe he wants to close this chapter completely, to remove every connection between us so he can move forward. The house was meant for a future we're not having. Keeping it ties him to me in a way he clearly doesn't want. She asks me to think about what would actually serve my healing, not what would make me feel less guilty in the moment. Over the next few sessions, Penelope helps me understand that my ex-boyfriend giving me the house isn't about me deserving it. It's about him closing that chapter of his life completely. He bought it for someone he thought I was, for a future he was planning. That future doesn't exist anymore. Keeping it or selling it won't change what happened between us. She helps me see that I need to make the choice based on what will actually help me move forward, not based on guilt or shame. After several sessions of discussion, I decide to sell the house. I can't live there knowing what it represents. The money will go toward paying for therapy long-term, paying back my parents for supporting me these past weeks, and starting to build a life that's genuinely mine. Not the life he was trying to give me. Not the life I thought I wanted when I was with him. Something new that comes from understanding who I actually am. I sign the deed transfer papers and mail them back to the lawyer. Then I contact a real estate agent in Vermont about listing the property. 6 weeks after the breakup, I'm settling into a new routine. Therapy twice a week with Penelope, where we dig into my patterns around seeking validation and making decisions from loneliness rather than genuine desire. My new job in operations keeps me busy, and Mateo has become a good friend who takes me to lunch twice a week without asking uncomfortable questions. Regular coffee meetings with Rebecca, who's become an unexpected friend, someone who understands what I'm going through in a way nobody else can. I'm slowly rebuilding my sense of self, separate from my ex-boyfriend, separate from who I was trying to be for him. I still think about him every day, probably will for a long time. Wonder if he's happy in London, if he's met someone new, if he ever thinks about me. But I'm learning to sit with the grief and guilt without letting it consume me completely. The real estate agent in Vermont called yesterday. She says the house should sell quickly given the location and condition. There's already interest from 3 potential buyers. I'm ready to let go of that dream and build new ones based on who I actually am, rather than who I wanted to be. Well, that's another emotional disaster beautifully narrated by yours truly. If you made it to the end, I don't know if I should be proud or worried. Either way, subscribe. Misery loves company.